Hey, welcome to Max Man Cave Chats, episode 3. Today, our guest is Mandy Amano. She is an actor, veteran advocate, model, and more importantly, just a great American who truly cares about our veterans. So sit back, relax, enjoy, and thank you for joining us in the Man Cave.
Everybody watching this and listening to this, this is the third installment of Max Man Cave Chats. I'm sitting up here in the Man Cave, and I'm fortunate enough to have a really awesome guest on. Her name's Mandy Amano. She's an actress out of Hollywood, California. She's done a lot with veterans. She's volunteered a lot for a lot of the older veterans, and the idea behind this is, I thought it would be great to have somebody like her who's a civilian but has been around us to kind of, talk about things and, get her take on certain things and why she's been involved in the veteran community and what that means to her. And like I said, I'm just honored that, she said yes. We never met in person, but we've met over Zoom. Our first, we tried to do this before, but I'm not very technological, so I messed it up. And she's so awesome, she agreed to do it again. But like, I've followed her on the socials and everything, and we've talked, and she is really legit. And I'm all about people who are transparent, and what you see is what you get, and she's truly that. So Mandy, I really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate you doing this with me. And with that said, if you want to just give a quick introduction of yourself, and then, we'll get started.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's so amazing what you're doing here, and I was just so delighted and honored that you reached out. Well, I'm as far as intro goes, I'm an actor and now writer in Los Angeles, California. I grew up in Texas. I am half Japanese. My father's Japanese. My mom's Scottish, Irish, English, German. I, in terms of like, for this, in relation to this podcast, I guess the project I'm working on right now it's called SQUADRON. We'll see if that name sticks, but it's like a sci-fi post-apocalyptic story that I get to be a fighter pilot in. It's really fun. I get to fly a sci-fi souped up version of a Spitfire. That's also heavily influenced by World War II. And another project that's kind of related is called Blood Soldiers, where I'm a special ops vampire. And then a real passion project of mine is called The Sun Devil and the Princess. It's a 30-minute short that we did to use as a pitching piece for the feature, and that's a samurai-inspired fantasy. And I'm the princess, so that's a little bit on the opposite side. I'm the one that gets rescued in that one. But so even like, artistically, creatively, it's interesting how things kind of all intersect. There's kind of you can find, which is it's funny because it's also like character development when you're, as now as an actor, all of that, which we've talked about, how your environment and influences and your interests will sort of all suddenly align, and you step back and you're like, wow, this is actually, character development is real. Like in real life, it has to do with where you grew up, growing up in Texas with, football and cowboys, and my dad being Japanese. I have the samurai aspect, like that warrior spirit was always a life force that I was deeply moved by and always admired, always was drawn to those characters, those stories. I grew up on comic books and Star Wars, action adventure, sci-fi, fantasy. has always been my jam. So it naturally, then when I discovered, you know, all the amazing veteran and military causes, it just spoke to me. And, you know, it's funny, all the people may not guess that about me upon first meeting me, but people who really know me well, or people who get me right away,
Yeah.
as soon as they find out that I have such a heartstring for these causes, everyone's like, of course. Like, it makes total sense. So I just, you know, I feel like so much of my life is through that lens of just honoring and supporting those that are part of something greater than themselves and are willing to protect and look out for those who aren't able to do it for themselves, and have that self-sacrificial, you know, they're willing to lay their life down for what's right and for other people. And my whole life has just been, I just admire people like you tremendously. So,
Well, I admire people like you. Like for me, it's you know, life it's about, you know, being, you know, having integrity. Integrity is like key, and you know, knowing who you are and knowing what you're about. There's so many people out there, both veterans and civilians, that really have never taken the time to actually look deep inside themselves and see, you know, who they truly are. You know, they grind away and every day and all that stuff, but at the end of it all, you know, are they doing what they want to do to make themselves happy, and are they being real with themselves? And a lot of people aren't. But when you see people like you know, and I mean, look at me, you know, I'm a retired military guy. I could still have a high and tight and still, you know, act like I'm a soldier and everything. And, you know, that will always be me. But at the same time, I have to have integrity within myself to say, look, I'm not out there fighting the fight anymore. You know, the fight's here now.
right.
And the fight is inside me. So I need to do what makes me happy. And that's what, you know, I love about kind of where I'm going with this is I want so many different people to come on and talk about, you know, themselves in a real light. You know, I'm not doing the veterans that come on and they're, you know, slaying bodies and telling all the war stories and all. It's like, dude, we all do that, you know. But what are you doing now for you? You know, that's the key. And, you know, just like you said, you know, getting involved with veterans projects and all, people like you are so awesome because you don't realize the impact that you have on guys like me just by listening. You know, like I know you can give a couple caveats of talking to a couple of veterans and all, but just you sitting there and listening to them like means the world. So that's why, you know, like I said, I really wanted you on here because you're so good to talk to. You truly listen, and you know, you can see in your eyes and everything that you do, you know, on your socials or whatever, that's who you are. You know, and you love your doggies. You know,
Yes,
anybody that loves their dog is, you know, awesome in my book. But yeah, Mandy, with that said, you know, I think the first thing, you know, I'd like to, you know, kind of get your take on is, you know, you've been around veterans and everything, and a lot of veterans always say, well, civilians never understand what I'm going through, you know, blah, blah, blah. But yet the old timers, all they want to do is talk to people like you. So what would you say to a young veteran, if he was telling you, you know, why should I even talk to you? You can never understand. You know, you wouldn't get any. You wouldn't understand. You weren't there, and you have no clue what I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what would you say to somebody like that? If you don't mind me putting you on the spot with that.
No, not at all. It's a really good question. You know, I think at all of like our core, all people, all human beings have the same basic needs, the same basic emotions. And even if the circumstances for those feelings are different, it doesn't mean that someone else who hasn't gone through exactly the same thing can't understand on kind of just a human emotional level what you're going through. And human beings are gifted this amazing tool, which is empathy. And I can imagine that's the gift of imagination, right? I mean, that's now what you do as an actor. That's like how we tap into what it is, the human experience. And it's an amazing thing to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and empathize with what they've gone through. And a lot of times, even if the circumstances are different and you both start sharing your feelings of loneliness, of not fitting in, of a loss of purpose, of regret, of shame, of grief, there's a connective tissue that can form between people. And it's a very strong bond, and it's very powerful. And so I just feel like, you know, and sometimes someone who's on the outside looking in can have a different perspective too. That might, that could be healing, that could be a refreshing point of view, or a lot of times too, sometimes from the outside looking, someone from the outside looking in will appreciate so much of what someone like yourself, like what you've been through, like you've talked about, without judgment. Because so I understand that there's nothing compares to someone relating through experience because you've gone through the same thing. But don't dismiss the value in someone who just has an open heart and really cares and really is able to empathically feel and care about what you're going through. And I know for me personally, it's a tremendous honor when someone opens up to you. And whether it's just sitting with someone and listening, or even if they don't want to talk and it's just sitting next to them, knowing that they're not alone, knowing that, you know, you can talk or not talk, but I'm going to sit here with you and let you know we're both connected. And if you want to talk to me, I'm more than happy to listen. And if you just give me a chance, I promise to have an open heart and an open mind. And there's something greater than just events or specific experiences, and that's the human heart.
Wow. That was even more than I thought would come out of this. But it's for guys like me, it takes so much courage to open up, and I have civilian friends like Steven, and we've talked a lot, with my wife. It took me forever to open up to her because with her, it wasn't so much that I didn't think she would understand. It was, I didn't want to put her in that place, but at the same time, the hardest thing truly I've ever done, and I've been in some very very, very tough situations. The hardest thing I've ever done is opening up. And the person I opened up to was a civilian.
Oh.
And, you know, and she was my therapist, but she was more than just a therapist. She was somebody who really cared.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same thing like we talked about, is I could talk and there was no judgment, you know. She wouldn't, you know, it's not about, you know, I didn't tell war stories and stuff like that. It was the stuff that really, that weighed on my soul that really came out. And that's, I think, but with a lot of that is, it doesn't really hit you until you transition. And then when you transition, you know, so many veterans say, well, I'm alone, I'm lost, this and that, because I'm not around my brothers and sisters anymore. Nobody will understand and all that stuff. And I'll tell you, you know, like, Mandy, you wouldn't understand what it's like to walk through a valley, you know, with bad guys shooting at you and trying to blow you up every day.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what it's like to be stressed out, to deal with the stresses of life. You also know what it's like to feel pain and loss. And that's what it's about. It's not about what we did or where we were at. It's about the feelings that we have now and how we process those and how we deal with it. And the problem is first off, guys like me don't teach younger guys how to deal with it, because, you know, it's all about the mission and it's about getting things done. But also it's because, you know, it's hard for us to trust people, because the situations we were in, you trust your buddy with your life, but then when you're not in those situations anymore, you feel like, how could I trust somebody that's not willing to take a bullet for me on, you know, and in the grand scheme of things, you don't truly know that they're not willing to take a bullet for you. You haven't trained together. You haven't been to combat. But what they do is, like you said, they will sit there and listen because they care on a human level, you know. It's not about what I did or what you did or any of that. It's about where we're at now and where we're going to tomorrow. And it truly takes us as veterans talking to people and, you know, talking to civilians about things. You know, you're not gonna open up to them about certain things. I mean, that's a given, because one, you don't want to scare them off and freak them out. But two, you know, you know, if you say certain terms or whatever, they're not going to understand. But what they will understand is, you know, I feel empty inside, you know, I feel guilty. I feel this, I feel that. And to know that somebody like you is there listening, you know, it could truly take that kid that's kind of dug themselves deep in a hole. It could kind of show that, hey, you know, even though my military buddy's on here, I can still get out of this hole because there are people here that want to pull me out.
Right.
But in order to get pulled out, you have to have some trust, and you have to, and it's not even about me trusting you. It's about me trusting myself, you know, trust myself to be transparent and truthful with you. And like I said, not so much the incident itself, but the feelings, you know. And every day of my life, every second, I feel pain, I feel loss, I feel regret every day. But what I've learned how to do is I've learned how to, when it gets to that point to where it's consuming me, then I got to talk to somebody about it. You know, I gotta, you know, because sometimes just that little bit of not even saying it's really bothering me, just talking about it,
right,
will take that load off for that day. You know what I'm saying? And that's why you know, it's so important, especially with the suicide epidemic in the veteran community. But I mean, it's not just veterans, it's anybody, is that, you know, someone like you're doing great. You know somebody, just reach out to them and talk to them, because you never know if they're that kid that's in a hole. Right. And you know, the other thing, to go along with that, you know how a lot of veterans get pissed off if people thank them for their service and stuff like that. I know you've heard that, right? You know, when people ask me, well, what should I do? You know what I tell them? Just go sit down by them and talk to them. You know, it ain't about thank you for your service. She's going to say, hey, you were in the military? Where'd you serve? What'd you do? You know, just ask them questions, because that little dialogue right there could be enough to pull that guy or gal that's in the grocery store out of a funk.
Right.
You know, because they're like, people actually give a crap about what I did. You know, because everybody knows the thank you for your service thing is cliche, even though people that say it truly mean it. But at the end of the day, you know, we serve because we wanted to, not because we had to, you know, so, right. but yeah, you know, the answer, the way you put that was just it's perfect. I mean, it's so true. You know, we can all empathize with each other and we can all listen to each other, you know, and and it's not just veterans and civilians or anybody. It's like the world today, if we could just listen to each other, we would be so much better off.
So much better off.
Yeah, you know, and I'll tell you, you know, in the military, I mean, hell, I still have alpha tendencies, you know, because that's what we call it. But at the end of the day, you know, it's like, why should I get pissed off because you're not agreeing with me, you know? Why should that piss me off? Why should I just not be like, hey, at least she's talking to me, you know? So that's really, you know, for me and for a lot of guys I've talked to, Mandy, that what you said, it resonates so much. And what I'm trying to do is make these guys and gals out there understand it's okay to talk to people like you. You know?
Yes.
You know? Like we have nothing to prove to anybody. You know? It's all about living life and moving on to tomorrow. But the other thing, you know, like you know, you living in LA, you know, me as a veteran, you know, I've used guns, I do all this stuff, you know, you're from Dallas, so I know you have some views like mine, but you know, by virtue of who you are and where you're at, you know, you're going to have a different take on things than I am. Right. You know, if you got into politics or beliefs or any of that stuff. But at the end of the day, what did guys like me fight for? Right. For you to be able to talk to me about those things, and for me to respect that, hey, she's strong in her convictions and she truly believes in what she's saying. And that's the problem right now is, and it's not just veterans, it's civilians and everybody, is we can't just listen to each other. And that's why it is so important for people like you to do things like this, to let people know that people want to talk, people want to listen, you know, people love people. You may not see it on social media and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, there are so many human beings that just love other human beings. And you know, I mean, guys will tell you, I was one of the most, you know, hardcore asshole leaders that you could think of in the military, you know, because I'm an infantry guy, you know, it was about life and death. But now that it's, you know, still every day of my life is about life and death, because those demons are always in there and I know they're not going to win. But the difference is I'm not going out every day and getting shot at or getting blown up. You know, my fight is not there anymore. My fight is within me.
Mm-hmm.
But in order for me to fight that fight, you know, we need people like you to support us and to tell us, hey, dude, yeah, you saw things that other people haven't, you know, that human beings aren't supposed to see. But guess what? You don't have to fight it alone.
Absolutely
you know?
not. Yeah.
And that's kind of how we are, you know, like us as veterans, we put everything on ourselves because, as you know, we talked about this, is if I'm not doing my job and I'm not doing me, what I'm supposed to do, then somebody else is going to get killed, you know? And,
Yeah.
but what I made a post for September 11th and I was talking about it, and I think it reigns so true, is just like in the military, you know, I have to get PID on the enemy within inside me, and PID, you know, is positive identification.
Right.
But once I get that PID, then I need support. I need somebody to assault through and help me take out this bad guy, right? And that's where people like you come in, you know. Because you have such a different, like you said, you have such a different lens on what's going on, especially in the civilian world, that you can help guys like me rationalize what's going on, because a lot of it is not so much what happened to us over there. A lot of it is just the change, you know.
Right.
This world is a different world than we lived in before. You know, when you're in the military, it's a different earth. It's a different United States. It's a different everything.
Right.
And then once you get out, you're in this civilian world where everything is different. But when you have civilians that, like you, want to listen and want to talk and want to, you know, help you dig out of that hole, I can tell anybody listening to this that is priceless. It truly is priceless. So thank you for that.
I just wish more resources were put into helping people when they get out of the military to make that transition, you know, like we've talked about how you guys are like the most, you know, well-trained human beings on the planet. There's so much that's put into your training for combat, and so much of your like your life, it's not a job, it's your part of your identity, and it takes over your life for however long you're in. And then when you get out, there isn't training to kind of reframe how you see the world and how you see yourself. There isn't that that lifeline, and that's just that training extended to you guys to transition back to civilian life and to reprogram how you see the world and how you relate to people and how you relate to situations. That I feel like that's a place that our country's failing you guys. So that makes what you're doing right now with your podcast and everything all the more important, because unfortunately it's not an official part of serving in the military. There isn't that, you know, reform part afterwards. I feel like you guys you kind of just set out into the world and
I mean, there's a transition assistance. Yeah, there's a transition assistance program, but it doesn't teach you how to transition.
Right.
You know, but you know, from what I've learned in the last 3.5 years, you know, since I've been out, is the transition is super hard, but the only way you're going to learn how to transition and learn how to be, you know, learn how to live in this world is you have to learn how to talk to people. You have to learn, but I think number one is you have to learn how to face yourself and say, look, you know, I can complain about this all day long, that it's not like it used to be. It's not this, it's not that. I don't have Sergeant Major Mac yelling at me to be here at 5:30 in the morning, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So now what does that tell you? That means you have to take care of you. And, you know, and like I've said before, you know, it's weird to say, but as you transition out, you know, you have to be somewhat selfish. And I didn't listen. You know, I had a great sergeant major that gave me a piece of advice. I remember when I was wounded, I fought back through my injuries. I stayed in. I could have got, you know, retired and all that stuff back then when I got injured. I stayed in. All I wanted to do was get back in the fight. And I remember I was doing a foot march one day, and my sergeant major caught me because he was one of the guys there holding my hand, telling me I was going to make it when I was hit. And he told me, he's like, "You're getting back at it too fast, man. You need to calm down. You're not going to, your boys are still going to be there." But what he told me, I never truly understood until about a year after I retired. And he told me, he's like, "Mac, I want you to remember something." He's like, "Once you get up to that level to where I'm at, or when you get to that point that you're getting out, there's only one person in the military that gives a shit about you." And he's like, "And that's you." And I never truly understood that until about a year after I got out, when I looked back at how I acted as a sergeant major and everything. And he was right, because it's about filling slots, fighting the fight, and continuing mission, you know?
Yeah.
So once you tell me I'm getting out and you're on that ETS process, or you're retiring, then my focus is not you anymore. My focus is on filling that slot and getting somebody in there that can fight and keep going. And then at that point, he's absolutely right. There's truly only one person that truly gives a shit about you in there, and that's you. And, you know, some leaders like may say that's bullshit, whatever, excuse my language, but I'm telling you, it's true. It's, and it's not by any fault of anybody. It's just the nature of the beast.
Right.
Because, you know, we say we're taking care of these kids because we make sure they get their award. You know, we make sure they get their leave taken care of. We make sure to go to transition assistance. But in the grand scheme of things, really the only reason we're making sure they're doing those things is so we can get them out of there quick enough to get that slot filled, you know?
Yeah.
And then once they're out, you know, like in the military, we called it soldier for life, but who's checking up on them? Who's, you know, who's keeping in contact with them? Who's doing all that? And, you know, I had a guy tell me this, it was about a week ago. I talked to him. It's one of my old troops, Nova. He talked to me, and he told me he talked to one of his buddies and told him, "Yeah, I just talked to my old first sergeant, you know, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "You talked to your old first sergeant? You still talk to him?" He's like, "Yeah, he always talks to us." But, you know, like I told Nova, I really didn't start until about 2 years ago, you know, because it never truly hit me until then. And it was like, you know, these kids, and they're all still kids to me, these kids were my responsibility. And now they're out, and I'm not their leader anymore, but I can still be there for them, and I can be their friend, you know, but in the grand scheme of things, while they were in and they were getting ready to get out, my focus was getting them out and getting somebody else in the slot so we could go to the next deployment and keep fighting. And, you know, we all talk about the transition thing, but I don't know. And I've tried, you know, I'm one of those guys, don't come complain to me with something unless you have a solution for it. And honestly, I have racked my brain and I can't figure out a solution for the transition problem, you know, because if we did take a guy or a gal out of the fight for a year to let him truly learn how to transition and all, then that slot right there is empty, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So how are we conducting mission? Because they may be mission essential, you know? So it's a very, I guess you could say it's a slippery slope, but to any of my brothers out there who are listening that are guys like me, you know, it's like, dude, while we were in, we were their leader. We couldn't be their friend. We couldn't, you know, we had to focus on the mission. We had to keep dudes alive. And now we all still, you know, those guys are always going to be ours. But now instead of being the asshole leader, we can be their friend, man. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I've had so many guys tell me that it has been so cool for them to be able to just hang out with me, you know, because it's not, I'm just Mac, you know, they still call me guys who I was their first sergeant. They still call me first sergeant. Guys who I was their sergeant major still call me sergeant major. But at the end of the day, I'm just Mac.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm just like them. I'm a veteran that deals with issues every day, and what helps me get through those are people like you and people like those guys. And that's what it's about. So but yeah,
that's something that's so, sorry, what were you going to say?
no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
That's something that I just think is so amazing about the military is the camaraderie that you guys, and when I say guys, like what you were saying, I mean,
Yeah,
men and women. Just that sense of teamwork and camaraderie with everyone that you work with is just, I mean, it's hard to think of something in civilian life that parallels that. I mean, I know, like, you know, sports and even a movie set, you know, is similar, but it's not life or death. So it's not, you're not putting your life in someone else's hands and asking them to do the same. So the stakes are so much higher, but it's just something that I think I just find it so moving, to be honest. Like, just the way that you guys take care of each other in the service and then out of the service, but it must be so jarring, and there must be such a when you don't have that as part of your structured day every day, to have that bond, that and have a group of you. It's not just like you and your best friend. There's like a group of you that look out for each other, that to suddenly not have that, it just, not to sound cheesy, but it just breaks my heart. Just thinking of someone having that and having that stripped away.
Well, and it, you know, it's funny you say that, because, you know, like, as a young person in the military, you know, a lot of people, you know, I've heard a lot of guys tell me over the years, you know, I shouldn't have got out, you know, I shouldn't have got out. And, you know, when you're in, it's just like in the civilian world, the grass is always greener.
Right.
You know, you got these assholes in the military telling you to be here at 5:30. Let's go do PT in the morning. Let's do all this. But what you're not thinking about is how, and that's why they call it indoctrination, is how you're not, being in the military, it's not a job. It's a way of life.
Right.
And when that way of life is taken from you, and a lot of times it's on your own accord because you decided to get out because you thought things were so rough.
Right.
You truly, you get lost and you just hate yourself for it, you know? And, you know, what I would tell guys and gals listening to this is, you know, if you chose to get out, embrace it. Embrace the fact that you did your time honorably, and embrace the fact that your life has changed. Those people that you serve with, trust me, will always be there if you need them. But they're not there every day telling you to wake up, put on this uniform, do this, do that. And that's why when you get to that point, it is so important to understand that you have to look inside yourself, and you have to have a reason for you to get up every day. You know, not for everybody else, but for yourself. And you know, I mean, and it's like I said, we always talk about the veteran suicide epidemic and the awareness and all that stuff. But what we're not doing as a community is we're not facing these things inside us that are consuming us, like the fact that now I hate every day because I'm around people at work that don't have the work ethic that my buddies had, and they don't give a shit about this job, and they don't do this and they don't do that. Well, then you have to make a living. But what you also have to do is you have to look deep inside yourself and you say, okay, is this good for me? You know, or do I need to figure out where I want to be and what I want to do? And then you do that job, or you do whatever that is until you don't have to anymore. And you can get to that point to where you want to do for you. But always, you know, look at it just like in the military. Make sure that you do that 5-paragraph op order, and you understand what the mission is, and you know what your end state is, not the commander's, but what yours is. Where do you want to be? Like, Mandy, people ask me, you know, where do I see myself as an old man? And if I make it to an old man, the only thing I want to be is happy. You know, I don't care about being rich. I don't care about any of that stuff. I want to be a guy that can sit on the porch, and when somebody waves by, like, hey, how you doing? You know, not, hey, what are you looking at? You know, because it's tiring. And a lot of us veterans feel like that's who we're supposed to be, you know. But guess what? Like I said, the angry veteran is a cliche. You know, because like, I'm not a weak guy. I'm a pretty tough guy. But I don't have anything to prove to anybody, so I don't have to, hey, I'm better than you, I'll kick you, you know, blah, blah, blah. Who gives a shit, man? The most important thing you can do is say, hey, you know, I got up today and I really hate this goddamn job and I hate everything I'm dealing with. So I gotta figure out how to move on and get to something that truly makes me feel good inside. And the self-loathing and all that stuff that we all do, because I do it too. I still do it daily, but I'm more aware of it and I know how to kind of fight it. Is the point is whether you're civilian, military, whatever, if you have that depression, that anxiety, any of that stuff, you can fight it. You cannot let it consume you, but the only way you can get past it is you have to recognize it. You know, and what you said with transition, you know, it breaks your heart, but also a lot of it is self-inflicted on us, you know, because we get out and we get into that, well, we did all this, you know, everybody owes us something, or, you know, we're damaged goods and, you know, all this stuff. When at the end of the day, you know, we saw things that people aren't supposed to see, and we're always going to have guilt. We're always going to have pain. But your brothers and sisters that were over there and didn't make it back, you know, the only thing they're doing, if they're up in heaven or wherever, looking down at you, is they want you to live a happy life and live for tomorrow, not for when they were gone, you know. Absolutely. So, you know, what I tell you guys, anybody listening to this, is just talk about stuff, but more importantly, look deep inside your soul acknowledge the fact that, yes, this sucks. I'm not in the military anymore. And, you know, whether it's self-inflicted or not, is you can sit there and waller in it all day, or you can say, you know what, I owe it to me to do something for me. And what could help with that is if people like you, Mandy, like I said, talk to us, but also, you know, tell people, hey, you owe it to yourself, man. You know, look at what you did. You know, like if I asked you right now, you would tell me, you know, you owe me everything for what I did. But at the end of the day, in my mind, I don't owe you anything because I did what I wanted to do. Nobody made me. It was what I wanted to do.
Right.
But the hardest thing for me to fathom and understand is that I owe it to myself.
Right.
You know, because in my mind, I owe it to all my buddies and my soldiers, but I can't owe them anything if I can't acknowledge what's going on within me, because then I don't have the currency to pay to help them and owe them, you know, because I haven't put the money in the bank inside myself.
Completely.
If that kind of makes sense to you, you know?
Absolutely.
So yeah.
I loved that what you said earlier about when you're in a good place, just check in with other people. Because we were talking the other day about how, you know, like when you're in a dark place, it's sometimes the furthest thing from your mind, or it seems like something impossible to do, is to reach out and ask for help, or you know, because you're in a dark place and you have dark voices telling you things that aren't true, and it's kind of asking the impossible of someone who's suffering. So it's important to spread the message of, when you're in a good place, continually like check on people, do your buddy checks, do your because it can be as simple as that, is to help someone and to show them that you care. And you know, we talked about Anthony Bourdain, and I loved how when he passed, all these, it seemed like the conversation took on another level, where it was check on your strong friends. And just check on each other. It's because you never know, like people can put on a strong face, they can put on a happy face, and you don't actually know, they might be reeling in pain on the inside. They're just really good at disguising it. So, but we can save each other every day just by, you know, just with those little things.
It's funny you say that. I was talking to one of my real good, well, I consider him brother today. And, you know, he's in a place right now to where he told me, he's like, you know, I put on that face, man, but I just feel empty inside, you know? And like I told him, for years in the military, I put on that face, you know? Everybody thought I had my shit together, you know? I'd be with the family, I'd look happy, I'd do this. But there was no happiness inside me whatsoever. Like I truly felt empty. But nobody around me would have ever suspected. Right. You know, because that's Sergeant Major Mac. He's got his shit together. He's a tough guy. He's always joking with us and messing with us and doing this.
Exactly. Yeah.
But for me, I had to be that guy, because if I did tell somebody that I felt empty inside, or shit just didn't feel right, then, you know, I was afraid I would be looked at as weak. And that's, you know, and that's, now I will say the military is doing a lot better about trying to get away from that aspect of it, because mental health is so, it's so rough. But the thing is yeah, like you said, if you're doing good, just reach out. Somebody you haven't talked to in a while. And, you know, we all say, call the suicide hotline and all this stuff, but literally And I know it to be true because I've had so many buddies kill themselves. I've had 14 in the last, since the war started. And the thing is every one of them, we didn't suspect it, and I'll tell you, me being the guy I am and the way we were brought up, there is no way in hell I would have called a suicide hotline,
Right. Yeah.
So, but the other piece to that is if you can take a step back and you can just, something's wrong inside. If you can just say, you know what, man, I've been taking care of everybody else. That's what we do. But right now I can't take care of anybody else. I got to take care of me because I can't take care of them if I don't take care of me. Because so many of us, yeah, I'm good to go, man. I'm checking on such and such.
Right.
But the ones that say that are the ones that are hurting.
Right.
And that's the ones that, Mandy, like you be talking to me right now, and then you get a call tomorrow and you'd be like, hey, did you hear about Mac? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you'd be like, because Mac was always taking care of people. Mac was doing what he was supposed to do. Yeah, but Mac didn't take care of himself.
Right.
And you can't fix anybody. I can't fix anybody. The only thing I can do is help support them through the process.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if you don't face it, it's going to consume you. And we can give you all the tools in the world, but those tools won't do any good if you're not IDing the problem and you're facing that problem. And a lot of times facing that problem is the hardest thing you can do, but even harder than that is opening up to people about that problem.
Right. Yeah.
But if you do, and you are, from a civilian, like a guy like me, like you didn't know me. We've talked through Instagram and all, but if you see me on there, I'm this tough guy. I throw tomahawks. I listen to heavy metal music. I'm an actor now and all this stuff. If you didn't know me, you would never think that I had issues. You know what I mean? As far as like everyday anxiety, stress, depression, mainly guilt. But the only way you do know that is because I'm willing to open up and talk about it, and that's my whole point with like the social media and all. Like I've tried to figure it out is I try to do the cool stuff, to motivate people, but I also try so hard to be transparent to show people that it's okay, man. It's just like, when I did the reunion with my Bico guys, and you saw the video. Like I said, it's okay to not be okay, man. If you can acknowledge the fact that I'm not okay inside, then you can fight it.
Yeah.
But the problem is we don't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And then we wind up getting to that place to where, because we didn't acknowledge it, that the only way out of that pain and the only way out of hurting other people is just ending it. When if you just acknowledge that you're not okay, and you can look deep inside and say, I'm not okay because of this, then you can be self-aware of what's going on and you can fight it.
Right.
But
what we resist persists.
There you go. Yep.
It grows and grows.
Yeah. And then, like I told you, like we said in the military, don't expect what you don't inspect. But also, me, I was taught in the military to lead from the front. And lead from the front does not mean being in front of the formation. Lead from the front means be the example. Show people what right looks like. And if I'm that guy that constantly tells everybody I'm good to go and I'm just helping everybody else in this veteran world, am I truly leading from the front? No.
Right.
Leading from the front in this world is being transparent and showing people that it's okay, man. You can get through it.
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta deal with it. And,
Mm-hmm.
I can be a badass just like the rest of us badass veterans,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't need to prove that to you,
Yeah.
you know?
No.
And that's where a lot of us have problems, is we still feel like that's who we got to be,
Right.
and I'm always going to be a paratrooper at heart. I'm always, if
Mm-hmm.
shit hit the fan tomorrow, I could get out and fight if I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I acknowledge that the fight is right here.
Mm.
It's me, it's you, it's all of us coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And all it takes, truthfully, all it takes is just be willing to acknowledge the fact that you have issues, whether you're a veteran, civilian, or whoever,
Mm-hmm.
and then have people like you to talk to that support you,
Mm-hmm.
that will tell you it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. This reminds me so much of Japanese culture. How, what's the term that you said? PID?
Yeah, positive
PID?
identification.
Positive identification. That doesn't exist really in Asian cultures because mental health just doesn't exist.
Yeah,
It's and anything that could even be perceived as weakness or, asking for help or something that brings shame upon you and your family. It's just, you just don't do it. And it's so, it's so, it's such a horrible thing when people don't feel safe to just say that they're hurting and that they can't ask for help. And when you see it in a culture, whether it's the military culture or it's, Japanese culture and several other warrior cultures, I guess, so it's kind of,
yeah,
linked. It's just, there needs to be a lot of change within those cultures to show that it doesn't mean weakness at all. It actually takes so much courage and strength to come forward and ask for help. And so I just commend you for doing what you're doing. And, we've talked about General Dana Petard
yes,
from Fort Bliss. And I found out about him because of this article that came out on him in 2017 called "The General Who Went to War with Suicide." And he had struggled with depression his whole life. And he arrived in Fort Bliss in 2010. And right when he got there, I think it was like less than 2 weeks upon his arrival, he witnessed one of his young soldiers take his own life. And that several followed. And I think there were 12 that year. And he immediately jumped on the problem and was like, I have to do something about this. And he immediately brought in more mental health professionals to be available to everyone on the base. He brought in, I think he even expanded the gym and opened it 24 hours and brought in pastors and rabbis. And he's like, because not everyone's going to be comfortable talking to a therapist. They might want to talk to a trainer. They might want to, if they're
yeah,
religious, they're going to want to talk to someone who represents their religion. And so he made this all available very quickly within that year. And he also offered substance abuse treatment for anyone who needed it with no questions asked, and I think one of the most important things that he did is he stood in front of his entire base and told all his troops that he struggles with depression, he sees a therapist, and it's not something to be ashamed of. And the fact that he was willing to do that is it's revolutionary, and
well,
there because of that and the programs that he implemented on the base, I think it was 12 suicides in 2010, the next year was 7, and the next year was 5. And then even the Pentagon acknowledged him for having the most effective mental health program and the least amount of deaths by suicide than any installation in the army worldwide. And it was like incredible. And yet when he was transferred out of there, they got rid of all the programs.
Yeah, because it's a different commander and a different, different way of leading. But you see that guy, he led by example.
Yes.
And I'm not their leader anymore. But the way I look at it is, if I can show them and let them know the struggles that I face and what I go through every day, then, I'm hoping that one kid will be like, hey, Sergeant Major Max got issues. I thought I was all jacked up, but he's jacked up too, but this is how he's getting through it. I can do it too, and that's the key to it is we need more people like senior people out there telling these guys that, hey, I got issues too, man. I'm a human being just like you. Think about it. You did 3 or 4 years in the Army and you did one deployment. A guy like me, I did 25 years in the Army with all those deployments, So now I will say, as you become a leader, it's easier to rationalize the things that happen in combat because you understand some of the calls that are made and the reason why things happen.
Right.
And that's why I also think it's very important as a leader like me to talk to your soldiers even now, because a lot of times just you telling them why something happened the way it did could change everything.
Yeah. Wow.
Because when you're a soldier, you got those blinders on, because you're only seeing what's right in front of you. But as you become a leader, they come off and off and off, and you understand why things are done the way they are and why calls are made. And then what you truly have to understand is that one of the most important keys to leadership is making decisions. And sometimes those decisions aren't the right decisions.
Right.
But you learn from those decisions. And also in combat, and I'll be the first one to tell you that I blame myself for so many things that regardless of how squared away you are, regardless of what kind of soldier you are or leader or whatever, bad things are still going to happen.
Right.
And when those bad things do happen, you drive on and you keep continuing the mission. But then when the mission's over, nobody ever teaches you how to rationalize it. And that's what we talked about, and I can tell you, like even me, there's a lot of stuff that I still can't rationalize why it happened the way it did. But what I do know is that within my heart, I know that everybody on the ground in that situation did what they thought was right. And at the end of the day, it's combat and bad things are going to happen.
Right.
And we all, as veterans, no matter what it is, even in the civilian world, it's our fault some way, shape, or form. We should have did this. We should have done that. We should have, and at the end of the day, no matter what you did, the outcome was probably going to be the same.
Right.
But we have to put that weight on us because the way we're taught that if I don't do my job, something happens to you. Right. And when something does happen to you, then no matter what it was, I figure out some way deep in my soul to blame myself.
Right.
And a lot of it is, why am I still here? And I'll tell you, for me, one of my biggest challenges is every day is, I know I'm a tough guy and all this stuff, but how am I still here when so many young guys aren't anymore, But I also use that to be like, I am still here. And if I let these demons and this pain defeat me now and take me out, then what are those guys who look up to me, what are they going to think is going to happen to them 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line?
Mm-hmm.
So I not only owe it to myself, but I owe it to them to step up and take care of myself, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and show them that, hey, I got issues, man. I got guilt. I got all that stuff, but I'm gonna win. I'm not gonna let it defeat me. I'm not gonna let it consume me.
Mm.
And with a lot of that, you know, a lot of guys and gals will think they want to forget certain things. Trust me, there were a lot of things that I did forget. And then through therapy and everything, some of it came rushing back, some of it too fast, and I didn't really want it to.
Mm.
But now that it's there, I'm glad it is, because it gives me fuel to continue to fight with inside myself, because I know the sacrifice that they made over there
Right.
for me to be here right now,
Right.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here and I'm alive. So I owe it to me to live a good and happy life. And if I do that, then I'm showing honor to my brothers and sisters who gave me that right. You
Right.
know? So, but yeah, that's
Oh, go ahead.
that's it. Go
There,
ahead.
there was one of the things that I was always hard for me to wrap my head around was, you know, wow, just being willing to put it all on the line, being, you know, to risk your life for a country, for strangers that you don't even know, you know. And then I can't remember now where I heard it, but there was a veteran that was saying, you know, yes, I do it. I went into war. I, you know, fought in combat, but I did it for my country, but I really did it for the guy next to me.
Yep.
And oh God,
Well, you
that's
know,
just
well, people have asked me that. Like, I've even been asked, you know, do I think it was worth it? You know,
right.
Rudy and I talked about this. Yes, it was 120% worth it, because I joined the military because I had this thing inside me that wanted to serve. And then when I actually came in, then I realized that I truly was around the best that America has to offer.
Mm.
And, you know, and what I think, you know, you really learn is that, you know, at least for me, and I've talked to a lot of guys, and it kind of puts it into perspective for them when a guy like me tells them, is like, no matter what ground it was, no matter if it was the invasion in Iraq or if it was the Argandab in Afghanistan or wherever, because I've been all over the place,
Mm.
it wasn't about the strategic aspects of what's going on over there. I joined the military to be a foot soldier, you know, to be a paratrooper. And my job was to close with and destroy the enemy that was in front of me, and to make sure that my buddies to my left and right made it home alive. And
Mm.
that's all that mattered.
Right.
And to know that, and this is the other thing a lot of people understand, is to know that I was over there bringing the fight to them, doing everything I could to take care of my brothers, and also acknowledging the fact that I might come home, not come home. But I knew that as long as I was over there taking the fight to them, they weren't over here taking it to us on our homeland, like September 11th, you
Right.
know, and because I, what I've seen and all the stuff I've seen is I would never, ever, people here in America don't understand, man, is like, you don't want to see that here,
Yeah.
you know, and we were there taking the fight to the enemy. But the most important aspect in how we as Americans win wars and how we win battles is we don't fight for America. We fight for who's beside us. Because at the end of the day, on that piece of terrain, that's
Mm.
what matters.
Right.
It's who's beside me.
Yeah.
It's not what our government thinks. It's not any of that stuff. Because if I can take care of you and you can take care of me, we can take those guys out. And guess what? The majority of the time, they don't fight the same way we do. You know, their leaders sacrifice people and stuff like that. Our leaders do everything they can to mitigate the risk for our troopers.
Right.
And, but yeah, you know, I've been asked that plenty of times. Was it worth it? You know, everything I've been through, being, you know, wounded and having so many guys get killed and everything, you know, I would never change ever. I will always say it was worth it because I signed up to do a job, and that's what the job was. And in doing so, I got to fight alongside of truly the best human beings this planet has to offer. Not politically correct human beings by any means, but the best. You know, ones that truly, you know, when you're in that situation, to you, your life doesn't matter anymore. You know? Because I acknowledge the fact that if I don't come home, that my wife and girls knew that I did everything I could to take care of everybody around me, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And that's what it's about. It's about, in combat, it's about taking care of your brothers and sisters. So now that we're not in combat, now we're in combat within ourselves. We have to face that enemy, but just like in combat, we needed our brothers and sisters as support.
Yeah.
And
you don't have to do
and
it
by
alone.
by brothers and sisters, it's not just military brothers and sisters. It's our friends, our family. It's people that care. It's human beings. We're brothers and sisters, you know? I could give a crap less if we have different religious views or any of that crap. It doesn't matter. It's all about respecting, you know, appreciating one another and appreciating life. And every day, and I hope people take from this, and I hope you see it, is every day isn't about surviving. It's about living. You know, live for the day. Don't just survive, live. Because if you can live, you can fight whatever's within you. If you're just barely surviving, you can only survive for so long. Like, you can only survive on X amount of food, and then when it's gone, it's gone.
Right.
But you can live on this much food.
Right.
You know? So that's why I look at it every day as I'm going to live. And, you know, some days are harder than others, but I'm still going to live. I'm going to live for me. And if I live for me, then I'm living for everybody else. And I'm setting the example. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you come from, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do you come from military family?
My dad wasn't, but well, he didn't go to Vietnam, but he was 19 when I was born, so he was like right on the draft thing and all that stuff. But all my uncles and my grandpa were all Navy and Marines, except for one was a Army guy. And I remember my Uncle Junior was all pissed off when I told him I was going in the Army because he was a Marine. And I was like, I said, I want to be a paratrooper. I got to go in the Army, you know. But for me, it wasn't about those guys. It was about, I don't know. You know, as a kid, I saw like The Longest Day, you know, with John Wayne. And I saw, you know, and I learned about World War II and everything, and the Greatest Generation, and you know, and I was like, and I told myself, like most young guys, I'm gonna go in and see what it's like, you know, and probably get out and go to college and all this shit. And then I got in, and I was like, and this is what I tell guys too, like when I would talk to them about reenlistment, I'd be like, who here's getting out of the Army? And they'd all raise their hands. I was like, guess what? I was getting out every time I reenlisted. You know, because when you're young, you don't really, you're weighing your options.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, I was good at it, and it just felt like the place to be. Right. And then when I was wounded in 2003 in the invasion, something clicked in me, and you know, I just told myself that I'm not getting taken out of this fight. And I fought it, and I stayed in and kept fighting, and then finally got to the point to where my body, you know, my mind still wanted to go, but with a broken neck and shrapnel everywhere and everything. You know, you get to a point to where it's like, I can't be kicking indoors with these guys anymore. So what am I really doing here? You know, because once you move up past the level I was at, you know, you still have an effect on soldiers, but you don't see it daily. And for me, you know, I have people that ask me, even civilians, you know, in leadership, what's the most important thing in leadership? And, you know, truthfully, what I truly believe it is being seen. If your subordinates see you, they know you're there and they know you're there with them.
Right.
But if they don't see you, and you know the deal as a boss, regardless of whatever you're doing, you know, when you move up, you don't have to be there.
Right.
You can sit in your office, you can do whatever. But if you are there and you are seen, then those guys know, hey, this guy knows where he came from. You know, and that's, to me, that's very important, is be seen. And that's why it's what I'm doing now, is I'm still trying to be seen. You know, I'm trying to let dudes know I'm still here. You know, I might look a lot different, but I'm still here. You know? Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, with all all that stuff we talked about, you know, in closing, what I'd like to say and take from this is, it's so important to have dialogue like this with people like you. And I'm hoping more people like me do that. And the same with you, Mandy. If you know other people that want to come on and talk about things, let me know. You know, I'd love to have them, because it's, anytime we can do this, then we can help each other. We can, you know, especially in the way the world is now, especially our country.
Right.
You know, let people know that, hey, we're all here. We're still here for each other. You might not see it, but we are. You know, and that's key. So yeah, with that said, I mean, you know, do you have anything you'd like to close with? I know, because we've been on for an hour and a half now.
We have?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it goes quick when you're talking, but
it does go very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to do a little shout out to my grandpa.
There you go.
He's my daddy's daddy was in the MIS as a Japanese American in World War II. And
that is awesome.
Yeah, he's amazing. And what's so interesting though is I knew that he served in World War II, but I think from what I gather, the Japanese Americans were sort of supposed to, they were basically kind of sworn to silence. They weren't really supposed to talk about what all that they did and all of that. And then it's kind of not Japanese to talk about that anyways. So he never really shared much about his service, and it was always kind of downplayed when I was growing up. So it wasn't until this spark of this passion was basically ignited in me for these veteran causes that I sort of, in retrospect, discovered his service, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's been a huge gift to acknowledge what he's given to this country and everything that he went through, and everyone from the 442nd and 100th Battalion and the MIS, and and a very sadly a similar time, when Japanese Americans were getting interned, and yet they were still putting their lives on the line to fight for a country that was in, putting their families in camps. And that to me is just incredible. So I just kind of wanted to
Yeah, well, I couldn't imagine what those guys went through, but you know, when I was in Hawaii, I got to learn a lot about the 442nd and on. They were awesome.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, it's even like, you know, the black soldiers in the Civil War,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
you know, just being persecuted by everyday Americans, but knowing that at the end of the day, there's something special here and there's something to fight for. And then
Absolutely.
the outcome will be that we can all eventually get to a place to where we can live together.
Mhm.
And that's key. And that's why I respect guys like your grandfather so much. And it's amazing. Like, I couldn't imagine, you know, he'll still have that spirit and that will to serve, you know. So,
Mhm. Yeah. He's
but
starting to talk about it more now. I
well,
think
that's
now that
good. Yeah.
he's older, and you know, once the Japanese Americans received that the Congressional Gold Medal, I think then all of a sudden he was like ready to talk about
Yeah. Well,
about it.
continue the talks because it's so
Yeah,
important.
absolutely. I want to get him on camera to share
Yeah,
all
I'd
his
love to talk to him.
stories, and yeah, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to do a little shout out to him.
Well, with all that said, you know, like I said, we've been on for like an hour and 40 minutes, but you know, I don't only do this for other people to hear, but for me, it's therapy too. You know,
Mm,
it always helps because different things come out when I'm talking to different people. So,
right.
you know, all I can say to you, Mandy, is, you know, thank you so much. Continue to be, you know, the person you are.
Mm,
And, you know, and you got a friend for life in old Mac here now. And we'll all, you know, we're all in this together. You know, it ain't
absolutely.
about veterans, it
Likewise.
ain't about civilians, it's about being humans. And
Mm-hmm.
so all I can say again is just thank you so much. It's been my honor to do this with you, and I think the sound works this time, so I'll get it all squared away and we'll get it posted.
Nice.
But really, truly, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for everything that you're doing. And it's just been amazing to get to know you. And I can't wait to see your movie
Yeah,
and many
yeah,
more
well,
to come.
yeah, that's crazy. I can't even believe all that, but yeah, um,
Yeah, like I said, I guess we'll get off of here.
Alrighty.
But
Thank